And Mr. Moorhouse is joining us now to talk about his last year. For the man who, and we're discussing before getting there, sometimes I talk to you going, are you sure this is for you? Which comes across like that in a weird way, but you stand out from the crowd, Jason. You stand out.
Yeah, hopefully I do.
And we'll come to all that in a minute.
Yeah.
Anyway, this is the last thing on the final hurdle, but I've asked everyone to start with just about how you think the government did with the COVID situation.
Incredible. There was a public trust. People believed that we were doing the right thing, and things happen, and that's the problem across, that unless the people are prepared to follow you, then it's not going to work. And yeah, it was a 10 out of 10 really.
10 out of 10, yeah.
In terms of where we are at this point.
What about the frustration about the media? We were getting the sort of more information straight to the public, the way they were doing it. Were you happy with that?
I was quite lucky because I was actually in health and infrastructure, and it was an unusual time because when I came into politics, I thought I'm going to Douglas and I'm going to change the world. And I got into the department. It was kind of, we're the officers, we do the day-to-day stuff. You're the politician, come with your ideas and we'll think about them.
Right.
And the Chief Minister was really kind of proactive and said, we want the politicians at the table. So it's kind of really hands-on and, we'd input and we considered things. So it was really interesting actually seeing the briefings in terms of where the actual initial groundwork, the initial ideas had gone and come to fruition. So it was a really incredible time. Okay,
well, we'll talk more about the future and everything. It's such a fluid situation. Before this goes out, who knows what's going to be changing. But can we look back on your last year or the whole thing? I mean, we have to talk about it. You seem different from other people in the House. Now, take that as a compliment. I know it can sound a bit, but do you feel that you've been not fish out of water, because that would be rude, but do you feel you're dancing to a different drum almost?
Well, I think my background's different. I was a teacher. When it comes to giving speeches and things, I'm thinking, if I'm in front of a class, I want it to be over in 5 minutes. I want the key points to be there. I want them to be clear, people to understand it and then move on. Whereas lots of politicians are there to kind of share an idea, a thought, and develop that develop that thought and idea as things go along. And I really go to Keys or Tynwald with my core thought that I want to relay. And when it comes to a question, I've got key concepts I want to bring out and develop.
Well, I think we talk about this every time, but questions is definitely something you love. I mean, you are a serial questioner. Is that right?
Definitely. It's something I was quite reluctant to do initially, because in terms of the questions, kind of in the modern age, you've got the emails, you've got the phone calls, you've got the messages, and you get a lot of information that way. I was actually looking at my new computer. It's 2.5 years old now, and when I got it, all the old emails just had vanished. So it was quite interesting to see. I've actually sent nearly 30,000 emails in the last 2.5 years.
30,000 on government business?
Yeah. And it's kind of showing how kind of much stuff's coming in and going out, and there's a lot of kind of stuff in the background, and the question is just kind of that peak point.
I mean, do you really think you get answers to these questions? I mean, sometimes is that the right method to ask?
It's usually the last opportunity. So I've spoken to the ministers, I've gone around in circles, and it's kind of, can we please have clarity on this? And you also get other questions where it's kind of developing the idea and getting that realism. Probably one of the best questions I asked is probably one of the most irrelevant, and that was about using plastic wrapping on turnips about 2.5 years ago.
I missed that one.
And it was a classic in February.
Better than your seagull one?
Yeah.
Okay.
It was an interesting one, because actually a constituent had come and see me with her turnip and said, this shouldn't be happening. And after that, I got the order paper and I signed it and gave it to her and got Jeffrey to sign it. And then Jeffrey came to see me and he said, the office has been actually looking at this, and there's a clear gap in the regulation and the policy in this area. And this is something we're really going to focus on. And in terms of all the environmental stuff, it came from that kind of
question,
that small question.
So just to make clear, you're saying it's almost like last resort when you ask a question in the House. You've already, behind the scenes, rattling out these emails.
Yeah.
I mean, that's incredible. You must be up at all hours of the day then.
I get up at 5 o'clock every morning.
Right.
By 9 o'clock in the evening I'm getting tired, but it's a full-time job. I knew that when I was still in 2011, And in 2011, when I didn't get in, it was kind of, I've got my life back. So I knew in 2016, if I was to get 5 years, I'd put all I had into it.
Yeah.
So, it's joy.
You enjoying it?
Love it. Yeah.
Obviously, we'll come to the next bit about where you're going. But what have you achieved, I mean, big time in the middle of the year or the whole section? Yeah.
I think one of the greatest achievements is just slowly getting things done, whether it be something like the old police station in Castletown.
Well, you ask that almost every month, don't you?
Well,
is that every month?
No. I'd say every quarter, really, because you've got that slow progression.
Yeah.
In terms of going back, that was something that had gone through all the traditional channels, all the departments had been offered it. Manx National Heritage wasn't interested. We got the crystals for sale side in the window. It was kind of, we've got to do something.
Are you happy with the results or where it's going?
I think it's really quite interesting because really Castletown needs more businesses, more attractions, more things for people to do.
But they put it out, it makes no sense. Well, I read it anyway. They're putting it out, but whoever takes it on has to pay for any alterations, and then they hand it back when they finish.
Well, it's slightly more complex than that. But
Were you happy with that? With what?
Yeah, it's based on what happened with Costa. So in terms of the Costa building opposite, that was just kind of a rundown building, and Costa came in and turned it around. So what they're trying to do this time is bring in a similar entrepreneur, a similar idea, whatever it may be.
Very small area though, isn't it?
It is, but it's quite deceptive in terms of the number of rooms, and it's quite. It's that location.
Okay, well, don't get bogged down with that one particular thing, but it proves what you do. So you're honestly a dog with a bone.
Oh, definitely persistence. Yeah.
Does it get you into some sort of trouble though?
It does frustrate people because you can see that when I'm coming back, kind of 3 months on or 2 months on with something, it's kind of, well, I thought I was pushed aside, but now you've kind of got to keep things in mind, and you've got to put something in your calendar for 2 months ahead, making sure that there has been that progress. So
are the positives or negatives from the last year, or even the whole season?
I think the negatives have just been that slowness of things, that getting things done. There's still kind of
the walking and treacle things we always refer to.
Yeah, just simple things like housing. There are situations where constituents have issues, and it can't be a simple move. For the uninitiated, for the people who don't know all the intricate details, it's moving a person from one house into another house, and he's still left with an empty house. And for housing, it's much more complex than that, and that's just kind of an example. But I think government does make things complex, and if things were easier, then we'd be more successful.
How do you get on with Mr. Krajine?
Fine.
Well, because when you ask him questions, you don't seem very happy with the answers.
Well, I don't think he likes the question, does he?
He always just goes, I think I've answered that.
Yeah, and I think it's one of those things where we're kind of meeting a couple of times a week. It's kind of why you're asking the question, but...
He rolls his eyes at you.
Oh,
you can't see that in front, though.
But it's that issue that when you ask a question in private and get an answer, it remains in private, but a lot of the time you need to get it into the public domain so that people understand why something's been done. It's like the good old story of the flumes. That's something I keep coming back to, and it's the end of summer, we're coming up for it again, but there's something quite seriously gone wrong there. There's been a serious overspend, there's been a loss of revenue, and we're still not there. There's been a talk of illegal action which seems to have faded away, but it's simple things that become complex.
How have you gotten in your departments? Just remind everyone what your department's responsibilities you got.
I'm in health, and I'm corporate services there, and I'm also on the Economic Policy Review Committee and the Education Committee. And
a lot of committees then?
Not abnormally so. It seems to be a thing that committees are quite important for getting things done.
How do you think it's gone then? I mean, are you keeping them on message?
Yeah, I think... if I could, you don't really choose a committee. Kind of, it comes along and you're put forward, and if the support say get on the committee. But the Economic Policy Review Committee is incredible. The Poverty Committee and the Education Committee, the kind of things I would have hoped for. And so when it happened, it was kind of incredible. So things like looking at the Vision 9 reports, and coming out with that. We can look at tourism. We've got the poverty stuff. Actually, looking at real issues that affect real people in the Isle of Man, and the education stuff. Look at the education bill. It's things that really affect people. So it's such a privilege to be in that position and having an input.